Welcome to Face Forward, the podcast, the series that takes you behind the scenes of the riveting world of clinical trial management. I am your host, Valerie Coveney, and I am thrilled to be your guide on this journey through the nuances of planning, executing, and navigating the clinical research landscape. Welcome to today's episode as we explore the complexities of global clinical trials with two special guests. Lyn Mursalo, Director of Clinical Operations at Escient Pharmaceuticals, has led teams in delivering complex trial protocols and strategic CRO partnerships. With a focus on innovation and efficiency, Lyn ensures that clinical trials not only meet but exceed industry benchmarks. Randa Wahid, Senior Project Manager at Indero, formerly known as Innovaderm, has over 12 years of experience managing clinical trials across various therapeutic areas. With a master's in healthcare administration, Randa's strategic insights are key to navigating global clinical trials. Join us in welcoming Lyn and Randa as they share their strategies for maintaining realistic timelines, effective communication, and resilience in clinical trials. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Valerie. This is Lyn, and I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to having this discussion.
Thank you, Valerie. Excited to do this with the both of you.
So on to our first subject of conversation for today, ensuring realistic timelines. So this is a big one. How do you ensure that timelines remain realistic when coordinating multiple sites or international teams?
So this is a really important question, especially for a project manager, because we live day in and day out in our timelines. And when we first put together our timelines, during the study startup phase, we find out where our sites are going to be. We find out what countries they're going to be in, and then from there we go to our regulatory agencies and we request for their timelines for the study. So we go to all the regulatory agencies that we're going to work with in those specific countries, and we build their timelines into ours. So we find out when we're going to submit the protocol and all the documents that are necessary, what does their timeline look for approval? And when we find that out, we put it into our timelines, and then we're able to let our sites know when is that date that they can start screening patients and enrolling patients into the study. And then from there, we can get even more granular by looking at the open and close dates at different sites due to their country-specific holidays. So we build those in as well to ensure that that we're taking into account the country-specific holidays based on the countries that we've chosen for the study. And then lastly, ensuring that we are mitigating any miscommunications across all of the stakeholders. So ensuring that all the teams are on the same page regarding the deadlines and deliverables, making sure that everyone has those timelines from a high level perspective, but also even creating even more granular timelines within our cross-functional departments. So we will have our main timelines that tell us all the high levels, but then within our regulatory team, within our medical monitoring team, will have even more specific timelines, and we'll have to have separate one-on-one calls with them to ensure that they stay on task as well.
Yeah, and seconding that, Randa, I think from my perspective as the sponsor, the most important audience to me is my leadership team. And they're always going to know, bottom line is, when are we going to have the results for the study? And so from there, I have to give them a date. And so the things I have to take into consideration, as Randa said, are when the regulatory agencies close down. They close. I can't stop it. So I need to build that into my planning when I'm communicating a timeline. Obviously, working with Randa's team and with the project management team and the CRO is absolutely essential to get all of that information. Sometimes you as a sponsor can share the information from your own experience. So, for example, I've worked in Australia. I do know that you will not get anything out of an ethics committee between December and January. They're all closed. That's it. I've just got to build that into my timelines. And as long as you can justify that to the leadership team to help them understand why there is going to be somewhat of a delay, then that's fine. But just making sure you set those expectations up front is really, really important. And likewise with sites being away, every country has different holiday periods. In Australia, it's in December. In the US, it's June, July. So across the board, particularly if you're working internationally, you're going to find that every single country is going to have times when it's slow, and you need to bear that in mind when looking at your recruitment timelines, for example. When patients are available, if they're on holiday, are they going to be coming onto your trial? Can they stay on your trial if they're going away for 2 months in the middle of the year? So all of those things impact timelines, and just understanding them and communicating them is the most important thing of all. And also just working across time zones is always challenging, trying to set meetings. And again, study team members go away on holiday. So you're constantly trying to work against all of those challenges and still come in with your timelines in place. So as long as you're planning around it and have strategies just to address those issues, you're normally going to end up in the right place at the end. And then just ensuring that all your stakeholders are on the same page. Expressing timelines. I know particularly if the CRO is not managing all of the vendors and you have the sponsor managing some vendors, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And so just making sure you're all communicating that. From my perspective, I sometimes forget to let the CRO know what's happening with the vendors that I'm managing because I'm so wound up in what I'm doing. So really, really important just to communicate that, just to make sure they are aware that your vendor is going to be ready to set up exactly the same time as you want the study to start. So I think those are some important things just to kind of bear in mind as you're planning for clinical trials.
Definitely. Okay, so that's great. Thank you for sharing those insights. Moving on to our second point for today, cross-functional communication. So what can be done to ensure all cross-functional departments' details are addressed and communicated effectively between the sponsor and the CRO?
So I think for this question, using technology is key. What we've done is we utilize tools or platforms that we have as project managers to communicate properly between the CRO and the sponsor. So, for example, using Microsoft Teams, using SharePoint, using Power BI, creating graphs that are visuals that we can communicate different ideas back and forth with each other. And that is something that we implemented between Lyn and I when we were working on this study together, is using the SharePoint to look at documents so that we're all having up-to-date information. And using those tools really helped facilitate real-time updates and having a centralized access to the documents, and it reduced the risk of miscommunication. And then, in addition to this, I think that managing meetings is really important. It's not a matter of just having a meeting and putting meetings on the calendar at all. It's more having a very clear agenda and ensuring that we take minutes and notate action items for every individual that's on the call or anyone that's not on the call so that we can communicate it afterwards. And then ensuring you have proper follow up afterwards. So we use an action item log, we use a decision log, and it's all tracked in this in this tracker so that we can follow up with the proper individuals to ensure that tasks are being completed.
Yeah, and definitely adding to that, Randa, I think most importantly is having something like an ADI log. I know we tend to communicate via email, and we love email, and you can certainly convey a lot of information in an email. But the hard part is trying to find that email when you asked a question or if you're trying to understand what decision was made. So having one central place where you can all agree to document your decisions and any action items is absolutely essential to ensure that you're all across at the same page. Also having a clear communication plan. We have a project management plan, and in that we really clearly outline what the communication is going to look like, who's responsible for communication, who's responsible for maintaining the ADI log, just to make sure that we're all fully aligned on how we're going to communicate. And also bringing in our external stakeholders, that also helps them have a plan and understand who's going to be communicating with them about what, just to make sure that we're all aligned. For our studies, we had a SAQT tracker. So to avoid us having to email the CTMs and ask them questions about what's going on at sites, or if they've collected certain documentation, the CTMs will just go in there, put the information in there. We just pop in there every day and go, okay, this is what's required, this is what's been done, no email required. So that certainly was a huge help for us and a great tool which we developed over the course of our study. And I think Randa will agree, it saved many hours of email.
I did. And just on that point regarding the ADI log and like searching for your emails, one hack that I've used, you may have noticed in the ADI logs, is I'll copy and paste just the subject line into whatever the action item is in the notes so that we know that, hey, there's that email thread and we can just easily go back to it. I feel like that's helped me a lot because you can flag as many emails as you want, but if you have direct access to that subject line, then you can go back to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also just having some strategies for misalignment. If things are going wrong at some point, making sure you pause, get everybody back on the same page. You might have to have a protocol to understand how you're going to kind of get back together. Impromptu meetings. If you have a meeting that's scheduled for once a week and you need to communicate something more urgently in between, I think being flexible and just popping in and saying, let's get a meeting on the calendar and catch up and, get on the right page. That certainly helps us. And we've all been super flexible for the duration of the study that we've been doing. And I think it saved us a lot of time and made sure that we're all on the same page very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Excellent. So we're on here to our third and last point for this episode. So in what ways do you prepare yourself mentally and emotionally to deal with high stake decisions or setbacks in a clinical trial?
So this question is important because it's funny, as much experience as you have and as many years as you've been in clinical research, I feel like this really grounds you. Every study you work on grounds you because something always happens that you've never seen before, and you learn something from every clinical trial you work on. So I think that to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for decisions that come up, it's more of taking a very structured decision making process into place. So what we do is risk management, and we take risk assessment frameworks to evaluate what are the outcomes of the situation that just happened, and then go from there. So, for example, looking at the cause, the risk, and the effect of the situation. So if something happens, you look at, hey, what caused this to happen? If it were to happen, then this is going to affect this. And from there, it's going to affect X. And taking that into account. And then from there, going and discussing it with whichever cross-functional team members it affects, and coming up with a strategy so that you can come back to your stakeholders and come up with a plan on what your next steps are. But it's always nice to just take a step back, breathe for a second, not, get emotionally worked up about what's going on, so that you can have a structured, plan in place.
From my perspective, I think also just understanding that you have a team and understanding why you have a team around you, and everybody's bringing their area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot expect to be the expert on everything, although I'd like to think I am. So always bearing in mind, that is why you have a team. And going to those people for support, asking them for their advice is absolutely important, just to make sure you can have all the strategies in place that you need to carry the team forward. As the leader, you're not expected to have all the answers, but certainly you can use those people around you to help. And just pulling from past experience, we all know that patient recruitment is problematic. It's never new. I don't think there's one study I've ever worked on where we've had more patients coming in than we expected. So being prepared for that and having strategies in place before you hit the crisis to put out the flames and move forward and make sure you know how to circumvent those situations. And then just taking time for yourself. I think that's very, very important. We all get so tied up, and the pressure is on, and you have management asking you what your timelines look like. Take time for yourself. Relax, and just take a breath and come back the next day and face the day again.
Yeah, I think as project managers, we're grouped into this type A personality where we think we want to control everything. We want to know everything about everything that's going on. And it continues on for years, but then knowing that you have subject matter experts at the company that live in these topics day in and day out, that will be more knowledgeable than you are on these items, that we can go to and get their support. So that is a really important point.
Amazing. So thank you for the insight here. I really feel like taking time for yourself sounds very easy, but it can be hard in the moments of stress and pressure, but it should be a priority in your day, definitely. So I told both of you that this was our last question, but I actually have a bonus question if you're up for it. So if you'll allow me, I have a quick question here for both of you. So based on both your experiences, what would be strategies to maintain a strong collaborative relationship between sponsor and CRO? Because I really feel like that's something that came through for both of you in the last years.
From my perspective, I think most importantly is avoid the them versus us mindset. You're all in this together. This is a project that you're running together as a team. The CRO can't do without the sponsor, and the sponsor certainly can't do without the CRO. So nobody is more important than anybody else in this relationship. And I think for me, that's certainly what has helped us over the last couple of years that we've been working with Indero, is just understanding that this is a partnership. And I think that's really helped us get through, and we've met our timelines, and it's been a fantastic experience. So I can't overestimate how important that is.
Yeah, Lynn, you really nailed it. I mean, effective communication is key. We're in this together. If you win, we win. If you succeed, we succeed. As a CRO, we love to be part of the process. And even though the pharma and biotech company that we're working with is the one that's taking it to market, we are motivated by the fact that we are helping you along the way. And we know that the patients are receiving that treatment to help with their condition. So we love being part of that process, and we look at it as we're part of the team always with all of the companies that we work with.
Fantastic. So this brings an end to our episode for today. Thank you so much to both of you for being part of this initiative. It was a true pleasure having you on the podcast.
Really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to seeing the final edit.
As we conclude another illuminating episode of Face Forward, we find ourselves at the crossroads of science and progress. Remember that behind the jargon and statistics lie stories of unwavering commitment, meticulous observation, and the pursuit of evidence that shapes our understanding of health and disease. Stay at the forefront of knowledge and innovation and follow Face Forward on your preferred platform. My name is Valerie Kovney. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.